Dear learners and listeners, welcome to this session. I am Dr. G. Uma, working as an assistant professor in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Today we are going to see the concept of gender and development. Welcome to this session. Here we explain about the gender and development. Gender and development, which shares elements with the empowerment approach, gained popularity in the 1980s and attempts to address the loopholes of WID approach, which I have already explained. It is rooted in post-development theory and post-structuralist critiques in feminism. GAD does not consider women as a uniform group. It maintains that women's situation should be seen in the context of the socio-economic, racial and other factors that shape a particular society. It points to the importance of understanding the relationship between women and men and how society influences their respective roles. Development, to be meaningful, will have to take all these factors into consideration. The gender and development approach, it is talking about, it wants to redefine the existing gender relations. How did they do? How can we redefine the existing gender relations? So, by making appropriate policies, programs and laws to address the women's issues, they can alter the existing gender relations. To address this same, they have developed various tools and techniques. One tool is that like for example gender planning. Gender planning is part of the gender and development approach. Gender planning is the recognition of existing gender inequalities in the society and helps to formulate the policies to mitigate gender inequalities in the society. It aims to improve the status and condition of women by formulating appropriate policies and programs. The existing planning approach treats all as equal and it will make a plan for all without considering the inequalities existing in the society. Gender planning helps to expose, analyze and resolve the inequalities existing in social, economic, cultural, legal and family structures and serves to initiate process of change to address inequalities in such structures and process. Gender planning means it recognize the existing inequalities. There is an inequalities in the society. So, by formulating appropriate policies and programs, those inequalities can be mitigated and the gender inequalities can be addressed to bring the gender just society. Another objective of gender planning is to improve the women's status and conditions by formulating appropriate policies, programs and for making the appropriate laws. That is the important with regard to gender planning. Next one is the gender budgeting. A budget is one of the most important instruments which reflect the economic policies of the government. It can be useful and powerful tool in transforming the economy at the different levels of state, district or grassroots level of village panchayats. It reflects the choices that the government chooses in order to achieve economic and development goals. Of late, gender budgeting has emerged as a new process. Gender budgeting, we all must know that gender budgeting is not about preparing the separate budget for male and female. We need to integrate the women's concerns, girls' concerns and other genders' concerns into the existing budgets. Because for example, if you want to address the needs of the female members in the society, other genders in the society, basically you need financial resources to address their needs. How can we get a financial resources? So, their needs should be properly integrated into the existing budget. So, gender budgeting is the very important tool to integrate the women's concerns, other genders concerns in the existing budget. So, when you talk about the gender budgeting, it is not about preparing the separate budget for male and female. It is a process, it is emerged after the Beijing Platform for Action, preparing the budget by integrating or by properly integrating everyone's concerns in the existing budgeting process. Next one is the gender auditing. Gender auditing is the analysis of the system and process of finance of any government. Gender auditing implies auditing the income and expenditure of governments from a gender perspective and also analyzing the development process, including the process of legislation, guidelines, taxes and social development projects. It understands that policies have a differential impact on men and women by recognizing the roles and responsibilities of men in the society form the basis of gender auditing. Gender auditing is the one aspect of social auditing. Gender auditing is the analyzing the existing system and process of finance of any government. See, auditing, basically when you talk about auditing, it's about the auditing the income and expenditure of the government from a gender perspective, and also making the auditing the existing legislation, guidelines, taxes, social development project. Basically gender auditing is that we are auditing the existing policies, programs and trying to find out the particular policies and programs, what type of impact it has created on male and female members in the society by recognizing their existing roles and responsibilities of men and women in the society, and whether these concerns, women's concerns, other genders concerns, male members in the concerns properly integrated in the existing policies and programs in the society. That is very important. And GDI and GEM, Gender Related Development Index and Gender Empowerment Measures. Inter-district, interstate, cross-country comparison of women's empowerment are obtained from the Gender Related Development Index. GDI owes its origin to the precursor, that is the Human Development Index. The three main components, which are per capita income, educational attainment and life expectancy, which is proxy for health attainment. Gender disparities are measured keeping these three indicators into consideration. Quote, an additional measures, gender empowerment measure has been formulated to take into account aspects relating to economic participation and decision making by women. The indicators used in gender empowerment measure are share in income, share in parliamentary seats and an index that includes share in administrative and managerial jobs and share in professional and technical posts. Basically, three main components have been used to assess the GDI, that is the per capita income, educational attainment, life expectancy at birth, because when you talk about the life expectancy birth, it includes the health attainment of the individual. So, not only GDI, Gender Related Development Index, here they talk about the another important indicators, that is the gender empowerment measure. It has been basically gender empowerment measure quote has been formulated to take into account aspects relating to the economic participation and decision making by women. The indicators used in GEM are share in income, share in parliamentary seats and an index that includes share in administrative and managerial jobs and share in professional and technical positions. Gender blind approach. Gender blind approach does not consider these differences existing between men and women, rather it views men and women belong to the same category. Gender blindness refers to the failure to identify or acknowledge difference on the basis of gender where it is significant. This approach does not recognize gender as an essential factor that determines the choices of men and women separately in the society. So, through gender blind approach, we can assess whether the particular policies are addressing the gender concerns. So, gender blind approach does not consider this. If any policies are gender blind, then that particular policy does not consider the differences existing between men, women, girls and boys and other genders in the society. Rather, it views men, women or belong to the same category. So, gender blindness refers to the failure to identify or to acknowledge the differences on the basis of gender where it is significant. So, the next one is the right based approach. Right based approach aims at promoting and protecting human rights based on international human rights standards. It serves as a conceptual framework in the process of human development. Discriminatory practices, inequalities, unjust distribution of power are some of the factors which serve as hurdles in the holistic and inclusive development process. A right-based approach seeks to analyze these problems which impede progress of development. So, next one is the important thing I need to talk about here is that strategic and practical gender needs. I have already explained about the needs. Here strategic gender needs are the needs women identify because of their subordinate position to men in their society. Strategic gender needs vary according to the particular context. They relate gender division of labor, power and control and may include such issues as legal rights, domestic violence, equal wages, women's control over their body. Meeting strategic gender needs helps women to achieve greater gender equality. It also changes existing gender roles and therefore challenge women's subordinate position. Practical gender needs are the needs women identify their socially accepted roles in the society. Practical gender needs do not challenge the gender division of labor or women's subordinate position in the society, although arising out of them. Practical gender needs are the response to immediate perceived necessity identified within the specific context. They are practical in nature and often are concerned with inadequacies in living conditions such as water provisions, healthcare and employment. Gender analysis. Gender analysis refers to the variety of approaches and methods used to assess and understand the differences in the lives of women and men, girls and boys, and the relationship between and among us them, including their access to resources and opportunities, their activities and the constraints they face relative to each other. It is the process that identifies the varied and different roles and responsibilities that women, men and girls, boys have in the family, the community and the economic, legal, political and social structure. Gender Gap Index assesses the countries on how well they are dividing their resources and opportunities among their male and female populations regardless of the overall levels of these resources and opportunities. By providing the comprehensible framework for assessing and comparing global gender gaps and by revealing those countries that are role models in dividing these resources equitably between women and men, the index serves as a catalyst for greater awareness as well as greater exchange between policymakers. It examines 4 critical areas of inequality between men and women: economic participation and opportunity outcomes on salaries, participation levels and access to high skilled employment, educational attainment, outcomes on access to basic and higher level of education, political empowerment, outcomes on representation in decision making structures, health and survival, outcomes on life expectancy and sex ratio. Gender policy. Gender policy is an integral part of its organizational policies, programs and projects that involves building a culture that understands the issues and policies which respects diversity and gender related concerns. A mere statement of policy and objectives does not ensure the concerns relating to addressing the gender. Towards achieving the objectives, clear indicators needs to be defined to evaluate and assess the organization's commitment towards gender equity on a periodic basis. So, we have talked about the gender mainstreaming, gender analysis, gender budgeting, gender policy, all these concepts related to the gender and development approach. Hope you understood all these concepts clearly. All these concepts are related to the discipline of gender and development, women's studies, development studies. If anybody is interested in public policy, these concepts very well used in policies, planning process and women's studies and gender and development studies. Thank you so much for listening patiently. We will meet again with some other topic in some other sessions. Thank you so much.